So we're doing this again, because last time I mentioned that audiobooks counted as reading, the comment section went off. We had librarians quoting neuroscience, audiobook lovers finally feeling seen, and my personal favourite, somebody comparing listening to a book to reading a song. But here's the thing, if you've ever told somebody you've read a book and they go, wait, did you read it or did you listen to it? Like you just committed a crime? This video is for you. Or let's be honest, if you're still not convinced and want to prove me wrong in the comments, this one's for you too, friend. Alright, so before we get into anything deep or emotional, we have to talk about the technical stuff, which means I have to pull out the big guns. It's time for science. Because I can guarantee somebody is already scrolling down to the comment section to comment that reading is not listening and reading is passive, etc. Fair enough. Listening and reading are technically different processes. You use your eyes in one and your ears in the other. But here's the twist most people don't expect. Scientists at UC Berkeley did these incredible 3D brain scans of people reading and listening to the same stories, and guess what? The brain activity was nearly identical, like weirdly identical. Look at that, crazy stuff. Your brain doesn't actually care how the words enter, it cares what they mean and how they make you feel. Dr. Fatma Deniz, the lead researcher, literally said this: whether people are listening to or reading the same materials, they are processing semantic information similarly. So yes, the input method is different, ears versus eyes, but the result in your brain is the same, and that matters more. And hey, if that one study doesn't convince you, don't worry, there are more where that came from. The Journal of Educational Psychology found no meaningful difference in comprehension between reading and listening. A Science Direct study found that listeners often create more vivid mental imagery because your visual brain isn't busy decoding letters. And Dan Willingham, a cognitive psychologist from the University of Virginia, explains it like this: once your brain has the words, whether you read them or heard them, the same mental process kicks in to understand them. So yeah, the format is different, but your brain, it's doing the same job either way. Okay, science lesson over. Now let's talk about something that matters even more: accessibility. Because audiobooks don't just offer a different way to read, they offer a way to read for people who might not have had one otherwise. For someone who's blind or visually impaired, audiobooks are a convenience and a way to enjoy stories they might have not had access to otherwise. For people with brain injuries or chronic fatigue or ADHD or dyslexia, audiobooks can be the only format that makes reading really feel possible or enjoyable or just not quite so much of a chore. Some people listening while reading with their eyes, some using both senses to help with focus and memory, others just listen exclusively. I've had messages from people who've said that audiobooks have helped them fall back in love with books after years of struggling to focus or feeling left out of conversations around reading. And that's powerful. So if we know audiobooks help more people read, more types of people with different needs in different situations, then honestly, why are we still debating this? Let's talk about where this resistance really comes from. Okay, let's talk about reading snobbery, because yep, it's still a thing. There's this idea floating around that audiobooks somehow don't really count, that listening to a book is lazy or lesser, or that you're not really having the full reading experience unless you're physically turning pages and getting your eyeballs all up in there. And I get it. Honestly, I used to feel the same way. Especially after I came out of university, I'd spent years being taught that there were correct ways to read, and that if you weren't reading literary fiction in a quiet room with a notepad ready, you weren't really doing it right. So when audiobooks started getting popular, I genuinely thought they were cheating. Like I'd been taking some kind of shortcut and I wouldn't really deserve to say I'd read the book. And because of that, I didn't even try audiobooks for years. I missed out on so many books because I thought I had to read a certain way for it to count. But here's what changed. I was working full time, I had less energy, less time, and more things competing for my attention, including just generally being an adult. And one day I gave audiobooks a shot. Just one, and I realized, wait, this still feels just like reading. Well, obviously, because it is. And now I mix and match all the time. I'll start a book physically and finish it on audio, or I'll listen while I'm walking and then switch to the physical book when I get back. Some days I even need a full audiobook experience, or other days I just want to sit with the page instead. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Since then, I've read so many more books. I've slotted more reading into my life because I've stopped trying to force it to look a certain way. So if you've never tried an audiobook because you're not sure it'll count, or you've kind of judged them from the sidelines, I say this with love. Just try it. There are loads of great ways to start. Most libraries offer free audiobook loans through apps like Libby, and if you're looking to support independent bookstores while you do it, I use Libro FM, which is amazing. I've got a code in the description for you to get started with them if you want to. Still not convinced? Okay, let's just go through some of the most common things people say about audiobooks, and I'm going to give my personal opinion. Audiobooks are just passive consumption, reading is active. This is probably one of the most common ones that you'll see or hear or think, and it's one I used to believe too. I used to think that listening to a book was super passive, not earned, not reading at all. But if you've ever actually listened to an audiobook, you know that's not true. You're not just sitting there like some listening robot magically absorbing every word. You have to actively listen. It's like when you're having a conversation with a friend, there's active and passive listening. Passive listening is where you might take in a few words, but you're not really taking it in. Active listening is where you take in everything, absorb it, engage with it in your mind, and then interact in a different way. The same goes for listening to an audiobook. You're actively listening. If you weren't, you couldn't take in the story. Trust me. There would be no point. It would just be noise. Okay, next, if audiobooks count, then watching TV with subtitles counts too. This is one variation of a few people saying the same thing. If you're reading subtitles or, I don't know, the ingredients on a crisp packet or something, then that counts. And on the one hand, I'd say, well, yeah, all of those things are reading, you're reading subtitles. But on the other hand, if you're saying that reading subtitles is not the same as watching a film, then are you also saying that a hearing impaired or visually impaired person can't say that they've watched Finding Nemo because they have accessibility needs? Because if so, I think you need to really rethink your life choices. You didn't read it, so just say you listened to it. When people say this, I'm not really sure what the problem is. Are we all part of some massive reading competition where I have to say all the different formats I read my books in? Honestly, it's a little exhausting. If you're someone who holds this opinion, what I really want to know from you is, where did this come from? Why does it bother you? I'd like to think that this kind of thing is an individual's choice. If I wanted to say I read 80 books this year and 10 of them were audiobooks, I'm gonna say that I read 80 books this year. If someone else wanted to say that they read 70 books this year and listened to 10, they can. I'm not offended. I don't think they're saying it to prove a point, it just is. Okay, so what do you think after watching this? Do audiobooks count as reading? What are your thoughts? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time for another video.